Welcome back to my cozy nook in South Africa, from where I'm sharing everything that's going down in my garden this season. So for those of you that are new to the channel, welcome, and if you are returning, welcome back. On today's episode, we're going to be discussing what I harvested from my summer garden, as well as what I started planting in my winter garden. The highlight for me was definitely my turmeric that went to flower. At this point in time, it's all dried out and ready to harvest. So make sure to tune in next week when we'll be harvesting the turmeric. Another highlight, my chamomile flowers, which I picked and dried out to make some tea. And then of course my eggplant. If you're a new gardener, I do suggest that you start out with green pepper because it grows so easily and you will harvest a lot from this plant. It can actually pull through to the winter season. It's going to grow at a slower pace, but it's a plant that keeps on giving. Unfortunately, the snails in my garden love the cabbage as much as I do. So I did struggle a lot with that. I had basil growing and was able to harvest some seeds from my basil plant. Oregano was planted into the ground and it was flourishing. I made so many dishes from this plant and I'm still using it as we speak. Another plant that you can give a go are chilies, because chilies just keeps on giving. It grows through summer and winter and you'll always be able to harvest. My late mom gifted me the zinnia seeds and they attracted so many pollinators in the garden and just livened it up. I'm definitely going to be planting this again in the summer. Everything I planted in this box did well. I had some purple basil as well as some green basil. I ended up harvesting the seeds from those, so I will be planting that in the summer season. Then I also had some green pepper growing in this box, as well as Tabasco chili. And then of course some random cherry tomatoes popped up, and I decided to leave that because they're just so delicious in my salads as well as in some of my stews. And it's actually still producing little cherry tomatoes at this point in time. The grand tomatoes that I planted were also loved by the birds. They managed to get in underneath the nets and they just had a feast. So I ended up not being able to harvest any of my grand tomatoes. And as for my cucumbers, well, the snails, they just ended up eating it before I was able to harvest it. Even the snail ban could not keep these snails away. The banana tree grew very nicely, however it did not produce fruits. Hopefully it will produce fruit in the next season. I don't know what I'm doing wrong or if it's just not a tree that's going to bear fruit. But it's also nice to have the leaves to use in your cooking, isn't it? My Swiss chard patch was just flourishing and still is flourishing as long as I just keep the snails away. I'm so proud of this composting heap. Stay tuned till the end of the video where I'll explain exactly what I did. I'm a big fan of the turnip plant, so I went ahead and I planted some more seedlings, which will carry through into the summer season. I also had a different variety of chili growing, and it's been growing throughout summer and also throughout winter. I covered this tomato plant with this bird cage, hoping that the birds wouldn't get through, but Obviously, they just went in underneath and also started eating my little tomatoes, or it was actually ground tomatoes that I planted here. So I wasn't able to harvest any of that either. I'm going to have to make a different plan in the summer season. I'm sure that you can agree with me that homegrown lettuce just absolutely tastes better. So my melon plant, I noticed that I had fruit flies stinging it, so I wasn't able to harvest a lot of melons from this one plant, unfortunately. I did go ahead and I covered one little melon, and thank goodness I did that, because I was able to harvest one melon from that whole plant. And I planted 1 milli pip and 1 milli came up. So I was able to harvest that and have lots more pips to grow in the summer season. I also went ahead and I saved all these lovely sunflower seeds so that I'm able to plant in the future. I left the beetroot in the ground so that I can just use the greens in my salads as need be. I'm definitely going to be planting eggplant again. This is such an easy plant to grow. You see little purple flowers popping up, and if you give it some attention, you will definitely be able to harvest a bunch of eggplants from just one plant. It hasn't been a great season for me. The big tree during the summer that took up all of the sun really had an effect on what I was able to grow in my garden. I ended up only being able to harvest 1 melon, but that was due to fruit flies that kept on stinging my little melons before I could cover it. Covering 1 melon, and yes, success. That just means that if you're going to want to harvest melons or pumpkins or squash, you're going to have to cover it. Fruit flies really does cause havoc. We're going to be cutting this bad boy up at the end of the episode, so stay tuned. For the winter season, I ended up planting some more cabbage, as well as some more spinach, Chinese cabbage, and some more onions and beetroot. I did collect a lot of seeds from the previous season, from little things that I've grown in the garden, such as basil and coriander, and as well as my beloved turnip plant. We have turnip growing at this point in time as well as some coriander. Things are growing very slowly and days have already started changing. So it seems like what I planted in the winter season, because I did end up planting a little bit late due to traveling, I'm going to just let that go into the summer months and probably only be able to harvest at a later stage. What I've learned from my garden is if you don't spend a lot of time in the garden, you are going to see what you put in is what you're going to get out. So if you're going to give your garden some tender loving care, you every day in the garden pruning, watering and tending to your garden, you are going to be able to harvest much more. I unfortunately did not spend a lot of time in my garden due to traveling. However, I still had success. So I do encourage you to go ahead and give it a try. Go and see what you are able to plant and start somewhere. Plant 2 varieties and concentrate on that until you get that under the rope, and then start with something else. That big tree that I mentioned, I now had a big problem when the winter started, because that big tree started shedding all of the leaves, and the leaves were just everywhere. So last season I actually started composting heaps. I took a steel barrier and just put some steel mesh around it and started compiling the leaves in like layers with some twigs, as well as some coffee grinds, some tea bags, some egg shells. I also used the cartons from the eggs, and also, tore that up and put that into the mix, as well as if I made a fire and I had some ash left over, I also added that to the mix. And it ended up over the season of the summer and going into the winter, breaking down from watering it every second day, just keeping it nice and moist. it has turned into the most beautiful compost, and I'm just so excited because I started 2 heaps now. I've taken that compost and I've moved it over into a composting bed, and now I'm starting with 2 heaps of leaves and doing the same thing so that I can get more compost. I have used that compost and I've planted my seedlings in it, and it seems like my seedlings are doing good. And I do encourage you, if you have a little area in your garden where you are able to do some composting and you have a big tree or a leaf problem like I had, then do go ahead and try this method, because it actually really does work and the compost is just amazing. Furthermore, I have a really good friend of mine that lives in Amsterdam, and he actually gifted me a whole bunch of seeds, which I'm so excited to get into the pots. Let me show you. I'm not sure if you are as excited as I am when you are gifted seeds, but I'm sure you are. So I have got rainbow mixed carrots, some more melon, some pole beans, which are a really cool color, some beetroot, but this is actually like yellow and white and all kinds of different colors, which I haven't honestly planted before. I've got asparagus, some dwarf beans, I've got red onions, and I've got red cabbage. So shout out to Perky, thank you so much for these seeds. Can't wait to plant them, and they will obviously be planted in my compost that I have made at home. So I'll keep you guys up to date on how this is going to turn out. Let me know in the comments down below what you were planting this winter season and how it's going for you, if you had any fails or successes or any advice that you can give. I'm so keen to cut into this melon. I actually already used up the eggplant that I harvested, as well as the green peppers, and I've just been using the spinach in my food as well. So, okay, here goes nothing. Oh, it's nice and juicy. Oh, can you believe this came from my garden? I'm definitely going to be saving some of these seeds, well, all of them, and drying them out. So do start a little seed bank, make sure that you dry your seeds out nicely. Store it in a glass jar. I don't know if you know, when you buy tablets, you normally get like a little sachet with little jelly balls on the inside in a little paper bag. I don't know what you call that. But if you put that in with your glass jar, with your seeds, it will just actually preserve it so much longer. Keep your seeds in a cool, dry, would say dark space. If you could leave it in the garage or in a nice little hook or in a cupboard, it will do you the world of good. But yes, I'm going to be using this and making myself a nice fruit salad along with other fruits. And I'm just so excited to know that if you put in the effort, you're able to bring your food in and eat something that you know is nutritious and is healthy, because you know what went into it. So yes, I do encourage you to start gardening. If you have a passion to grow but you're scared, just like I said, start with 1 seed or 2 seeds and see how it goes, because you're going to learn that it is actually not that hard to garden. All you need to do is just give it some tender, loving care. Make sure that you put in the time, and then you'll be able to harvest your fruits of your labor. That's it for today's episode, guys. Until I see you again, stay shining and stay gardening.